Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe.
Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, and with me as always is the maestro of mail order mysteries, Eddie Guevara. Today's returning guests are well, you guys know who they are. They've been here many times before. We got Chuck Caputo and Mike Mezmer.
Right.
Gentlemen, how's it going tonight?
All right, guys.
Awesome. So, you know what, Michael? We're gonna start off with you tonight, since it's been a little while since you've been on. So what's new? How's everything been?
Doing great. I actually have been on tour around the United States doing my Danger Magic and my Transgnosis shows at major fairs, and did about, during the months of August and July to August, September, I did 105 performances. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it was pretty cool and big audiences, and getting ready now for the Halloween Castle Dark at Castle Park here in Riverside, California. We opened this weekend and got a special shows for that. It's a Halloween haunt combined with entertainment. So looking forward to that. And over the summer, I signed an agreement with a big publisher on the East Coast to write a book on ghost hunting. So a lot of exciting things happening.
Oh, awesome. Sounds like you've been busy and everything's picked up. So that's good to hear. So, Chuck, what's new over in the Pennsylvania area? How's everything been with you?
All right, pretty good. Yeah, this is my time of the year.
I love it.
Yeah, doing a lot of spooky shows, doing a lot of Halloween shows, a lot of Halloween performances. So I've been bringing my haunted dolls and all my things that move and float. Having a great time, man. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. Sounds good. Eddie, what's new over at House of the Unusual? You keeping the place clean and tidy?
Well, man, I just got back from a couple of days ago from Walt Disney, and it was very interesting because
you purchased the park, right?
Not only purchased the park, I was riding the Haunted Mansion like nobody. I actually went on the thing 6 times. I broke a record. I went, and it was so funny because I got a big painting that was about 17 by or 14 by 17, something like that. So I have it in this big bag. So obviously whoever saw me going in and out saw me holding the painting, And I went into the thing 6 times.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It was fun, man. I love the ride. Pirates of the Caribbean, I did one time. I'm not too fond of that fall, the 20, 30-foot drop. Drops you into the water there because it kind of gets my stomach going. Now, one thing that was funny, though, in Epcot, they have a new ride. I don't know if it's new. It might have been there a couple of years, but I don't remember, seeing it the last time, actually. It's kind of like it has a simulated rocket ship, and it's a simulation ride. It's a big building. On one side, it shows you it says new people that are going to be astronauts, and the other side is like going to Mars. But when you get in the Mars side, it actually has a thing where slingshots around the moon, and they tell you keep your eyes open because if you don't, you're gonna get dizzy. You think I listen? I closed my eyes and the moon slingshot. Man, I had vertigo for the rest of the day.
Wow.
Jesus.
It was horrible, man.
Well, hey, guys, before we get into our conversation today, because we got a lot to talk about, let's take a quick second to mention the friends of our House of the Unusual and a little bit part of our community real quick, and then we'll dive into our conversation because we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. So first, if you guys are got nothing better to do, which there's always something to do, and I got something better for you, head over on YouTube and check out our brother Chuck Caputo and his magic. He's under Sherry Caputo, his wife, and it's spelled Cheri. Just type it in the search, Sherry Caputo, and you'll see all Chuck's videos, man. They're about anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 minutes, real short, and they are fantastic. So if you're in the mood for some horror magic, some regular magic, whatnot, check him out. Subscribe to his channel and hit the like button on his videos. Also, while you're on YouTube, check out House of the Unusual and, do the same. Give us a subscribe and a like, and we're always there to entertain you, always adding new videos on each one. Also, if you are in the market for sea monkeys, which I got to tell you, everybody's in the market for sea monkeys. I mean, come on. head over to sea-monkeys.com and tell our brother Todd Machin that we sent you over there, and he might hook you up with something very special. But they got some amazing stuff on there. They got puzzles, mugs, T-shirts, posters, all kinds of Sea Monkey goodness over there. So, Christmas is right around the corner, so start stocking up and give your loved ones the gift of Sea Monkeys. I mean, what better present is there, right? Also, our buddy Dave Haverset, he's got a awesome website called 1878press.com, and that's 1878press.com. Has a ton of different books on magic, hypnotism. So if you're in the market for any of that and you want to do some reading on it or some learning, head over to that site and he will hook you up with something good. Also, stupidcomicsmagazine.com. This is your stop for one of the best comics, in my opinion, that's come out in a long time. And it's a mixture of Mad Magazine, Cracked, and Far Side all rolled into one. It's black and white, and it's absolutely hilarious. I believe they're up to issue number 4, so there's 5 issues out total. They started with number 0. And on the 4th issue, we have a huge advertisement in the back for House of the Unusual, so make sure you check that out. So that's stupidcomicsmagazine.com. Also, mymoviemonsters.com. The new issue of Scary Monsters number 123 is out, the harrowing haunted Halloween issue with a fantastic glow-in-the-dark cover by Scott Jackson. He's always putting out some great stuff. So this issue is shipping now. It should be out at retail stores, Barnes & Nobles. If it ain't out yet, it's going to be out there soon. And there are some great articles in there. And also, what's fantastic about this issue is that they give a shout out to all the contributors in there. So I'm in there. Mike Mezner, I see that you're in there too. You got a nice little write up with your photo in there.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you know what's cool about that black or the glow in the dark cover? They did something really unique because it's not just glow in the dark, but they had to do special artwork so that the things would actually appear when you're in the dark. So you don't see them when you're in the light, but when you're in the dark, the ghosts appear on the cover. It was kind of a unique thing. So the artist there had to redraw the cover literally a second time because when they went to the printer, it wasn't working the way they wanted it to. So he had to make line drawings rather than the normal way of doing it of the ghosts that would appear on there. So it's really unique. And of course, the 30th anniversary of Scary Monsters. So a special magazine in many ways.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I got my issue the other day through the mail, and I haven't had a chance to read through it yet. I've kind of perused through it, the articles, and I read the bio of the contributors and all that. And
yeah.
There's some fantastic people in there. So definitely, guys out there, if you haven't checked out Scary Monsters yet, this is the issue, you might want to get started on so you could kind of learn, who the contributors are, who the publishers are and everything. And it's a fantastic issue. I mean, every issue is great. So definitely check that out. And if you can't get out to a store, head over to mymoviemonsters.com and they have them for sale on there. And you could also get it bagged and boarded.
Absolutely.
So, and if you are like me and you're always looking for something to watch, horror or sci-fi related, I would highly recommend themonsterchannel.com. It's a free online streaming site, 24/7, monster and sci-fi. Sometimes they throw in some serials in there, some, old kung fu movies or westerns, but 98% of it's horror sci-fi. It's absolutely fantastic. There's a little chat that goes on in there too. Definitely something to check out. If you're bored or you need something to watch while you're, doing whatever around the house. So head over to themonsterchannel.com. All right. And last thing before we have our Crypt of Classic for this week. And let me pull it up here. So for those of you who haven't tuned in lately, we have a little segment. It's called Crypt of Classic. So what I try to do is I present a movie for you to watch, for the week. Head over to the forum and you could discuss it a little bit, give us your take on it, if you liked it or not. And it's kind of like, if you've watched everything in your DVD collection and you want some, you're looking for something to watch this week. Well, don't worry, I got you covered because this one is awesome. So if you are like me and you like your horror mixed with Egyptian mythology, I've got the movie for you. The Ghoul is a 1933 horror film released by the I hope I say this right, Gaumont British Picture Corporation. And it stars Boris Karloff, Cedric Hardwicke, Ernest Thesiger. Oh, I know I butchered that up, but you guys could look it up online. And Dorothy Hyson. Thomas Hayes Hunter directed the film while Michael Belkin took up the production duties. It was released on August 7th, 1933 in the United Kingdom and November 25th, 1933 in the United States. The runtime is 1 hour, 17 minutes, and it had a budget of just under £40,000, which would have been about $2,592 at that time. The Ghoul was considered a lost film until a nitrate release print was discovered in 1969 in the Czech National Archives in Prague. The print was a subtitled, edited version that was in poor condition and contained numerous splices. Several years later, a print of the uncut British version was finally discovered. In the early 1980s, while crews were clearing one of the sound stages at Shepperton Studios in England of old sets and other waste and debris, they found a locked door blocked by stacked lumber. Behind the door was a disused and long-forgotten film vault that had not been used since the mid-1930s. It was cleared, and among the many cans of old films was the original nitrate camera negative of this movie in perfect condition.
Wow.
The British Film Institute had new prints made, and the complete version aired on Channel 4 in the UK in 1984. You know, not too long ago. So that if anyone's ever seen this movie, it's fantastic, and it's really kind of weird to consider that it's, you know, it was found not too long ago, 35, 36 years ago. So definitely check it out. You know, if you haven't seen it in a while, this is a great one to revisit, you know, especially around Halloween time. So that's your movie for the week, The Ghoul, 1933, a fantastic Boris Karloff movie.
I'm gonna check that out, man.
And another thing we have to bring here is a shout out. We have a shout out to our Jim and Charlie. Jim helped me out just before I headed over to Florida. There was a slight, they were fixing the steps of my house, and they flooded the basement in the section where I have my little office because of the stairs. So he spent some good time. We spent about 4 hours taking out the rugs, and thanks to him, nothing was ruined. Again, another mishap. The other thing is, and this is really exciting things that are happening. Chuck Caputo, about a month or so ago, we laid out in YouTube a special that was live of his upcoming magic tricks. I finally was able to complete 5 of those kits, and they can be purchased at the houseoftheunusual.com website when you go to the shop directly on House of the Unusual. I did not put them on eBay. I only put the gathering on eBay. I'm going to keep everything on the website itself. The other thing that's also exciting that's on the pike is we're going to have, beginning this Friday, we're going to have Chuck's Corner. Every week, Chuck has got a special YouTube video, and he'll be discussing magic and, you know, and stuff. It's called Chuck's Corner. On Mondays, every week, none other than our Joe himself will have a Crypt of Classic review of the movie of that week. So whatever movies he gives you in Crypt of Classics, he's going to review the movie. He's going to watch it himself. He's not just going to tell you to watch it. He's going to have to sit down. He's going to watch it himself, and he'll give you his 5-10 minute review. And that's going to be every Monday. Beginning next Monday will be the first time. This Friday will be Chuck's initial Chuck's Corner. Every Wednesday, I will do a review about magic novelties, magic companies of the day, of the 1970s, from the Johnson Smith to Honor House, American Circle, etc. I will do a review of the different novelties, and I might do one unboxing once in a while as well.
You know what? I just had a great picture of Chuck's Corner. So, Chuck, I have this picture of you sitting in a big leather chair next to a fireplace with a nice tweed jacket on, smoking a pipe, and sitting there talking about magic.
Hey, that's kind of close. We actually have a big TV behind me with a fake fire behind me, and I'm sitting in a wooden chair next to a magic table. So it's close.
See,
It's the
there you
closest
go.
thing you can get, closest thing you can get.
That's good. Hey,
But-
the one thing I did want to mention, guys, you know what? I'm going to send the link to Eddie. There was a podcast that just came out that I participated in with Penguin Magic, and it's very interesting. It's about Tony Anverdi from Holland, so that seems to be a pretty hot topic right now. So this thing just came out, and it's about a half hour long. And Penguin is probably one of the largest magic companies, like in the whole world. So I'm going to send that link to Eddie, so maybe you could post that if you guys want to listen to it. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely throw it up on the website. But hey, Michael, Eddie, when I was talking to him earlier, he said that you were just on some type of TV show or something like that. Are you able to get into that? I don't know if it aired or not, or if you could talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, I was very excited. The reason I was excited is because I was able to represent someone who is it's very important to me in my career in many ways. It actually was a show for the Reels channel, REELZ channel, and it's airing off and on all the time right now. I did it early into the summer. I think it was just before the summer time, and then it was released about the summertime. It was Autopsy: The Last Hours of, which is a very popular show on TV and the Reels channel. It has Dr. Michael Hunter, and what they do, they go back and they look at personalities that died, and they try to explain exactly how they actually passed away. And it's a very positive show. It sounds negative, but it's a very positive show. And I was on Autopsy: The Last Hours of Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy. And I had known Siegfried and Roy since I was very, very young. And in fact, I used to go and see their show in the lighting booth at the MGM when I was just 16 and 17. And get me in the lighting booth, and I would be their guest with my friends and stuff. And they helped me a lot with my magic. And so I wanted to make sure it was going to be done in a very positive, classy way. And so I really wanted to be part of this. It's produced by ITV in England, and started out just with a little interview with me, and they got so excited they wanted me to be a guest on the show. Diana Zimmerman, who's with a very famous magician, and she's also a writer as well. She was on there also because she did the definitive book on the life of Siegfried and Roy, and a couple other people that were involved with that. Very honored to be part of it. I was actually the opening first words on the show, and I was the closing last words on the show as well. But in between, I talk a lot about Roy and about my knowledge of Siegfried and Roy. A lot of the inside circle of Siegfried and Roy didn't want to pretend they understood the show. And like I told them, I was not a friend of Siegfried and Roy, but I was a super fan, and they helped me with my career. And so I was very happy to be able to represent them. And I think we did a great job. All the people that I've talked to felt that it was really a positive and put Roy in the right context, which is he was truly a wonderful person and a superhero if there ever was one. I mean, when he'd fly over the stage holding on to ropes and the incredible things he did with the tigers, it was just unbelievable. And so I last saw Siegfried about a year and a half ago at Christmas with my daughter and my wife, and we visited. And so that was the last time I saw him before he passed away. But yeah, it's a fantastic show. It's airing off and on Reels channel, Autopsy: The Last Hours of Roy Horn. And it's the only one that I know of they've ever done on a magician. So it's part of magical history, part of Siegfried and Roy history. And I was honored to be just a small part of their history.
Oh, they were fantastic. I saw them twice years ago, and they were absolutely amazing. Their show really, really took magic to the next level. You mentioned Diana Zimmerman. She was married to Dick Zimmerman years ago. And I tell you what, she's one of the most amazing magicians that I've ever seen. And you know what? If there's anybody out there that would like to watch her, look her up on YouTube. There's a few videos of her, Diana Zimmerman. She's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and her new books about a fantasy land called Candide, they're really bestsellers, and she's doing great as an author these days.
Good.
But yeah, she was a great magician, and of course, her husband Dick was a great inventor of magic.
Yes.
He worked for Mattel originally, and he developed a lot of toys for Mattel, all of that. Plus, he was a ragtime pianist. He did Scott Joplin albums and stuff.
That's right.
But yeah, his inventions were incredible, and they actually filled in for a while when Siegfried and Roy left the MGM. Diana and her husband did their act in Siegfried and Roy spot for a brief time there after they had departed there. But yeah, Dinah's a great person. But yeah, talking about Roy, I mean, he was just so amazing. And the things they did were things I always tell people when people say, who were the greatest magicians of all time? Well, you know, there's a lot of ways to look at it. But for me, Siegfried and Roy were probably the greatest. And I'll say why, because no one ever could do what they did before them, and no one will ever be able to duplicate what they did after them. You can get people to build illusions like David Copperfield. You can perform all the things other magicians have done. You may not be as good as them. You may not be David Copperfield, obviously, but you can perform their show. But you can never perform what Siegfried and Roy did. They were one of a kind in the history of our business.
Absolutely.
Now, Mike, I got a question. Maybe you could answer this. Is what made them get into doing shows with lions and tigers? I mean, because that's definitely something unusual. But why did that become their act? Was there something that they maybe had a lifelong obsession with them, or was it just something they thought, hey, this might be great, you know, to perform on stage? Do you know anything about that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, they started. What happened was they grew up in post-war Germany, and both their fathers suffered from the war. Both their fathers were alcoholics. And then Roy's father left when he was fairly young, and he had a stepfather who was very kind to him with his mother and brought him up. But Roy's trajectory was that he had a wolf dog that saved his life when he was little, and he loved animals all his life. And then he became he had a cheetah that he became friends with at the zoo, who I believe his uncle had connection with the zoo. And then he took that cheetah on board the Bremen cruise ship with him. Now, let me tell you, he didn't let the ship know he had it. He put this was his first illusion. He put him in his knapsack behind his back and just walked on the ship casually. And then he kept him in his cabin. Well, Siegfried's trajectory was that his father was always very non-connected with him, very cold, because he was an alcoholic. And the only time that his father ever paid attention was he did a little coin demonstration for him, and that opened his father's eyes to him. And because of that, he always wanted to be a magician. And he found money in the street one day walking around Germany to be able to buy this magic book he wanted, because they were poor. And he bought the magic book, and then he became a magician. He was on the Bremen as a magician. Roy was on there as a steward. So Roy had seen Siegfried do his magic during the show, and he said, could you come down to my cabin? He opened the door and said, can you put this into your show? And Siegfried was shocked. They did the show, but they were fired off the Bremen. But that night in that audience was the owner of a big cruise line, who instantly hired them to come and be stars on his ship, and the rest is history.
Boy, that's amazing. I know many people out there familiar with Siegfried and Roy, I'm sorry, and the, you know, their career and the 2003 incident with the tiger that ultimately was a career-ending incident for Horn. Can you speak a little bit about that for maybe some people that might not be too familiar with that incident?
Sure. Well, first of all, when they started out, Roy was with the animals 24/7. He would drive them to and from the theater. He was always with them. They were like family to him, and he really had a psychic connection with them. Literally, I mean, they were very, very connected. But as time went on, they got more and more animals, and he had to assign sub-trainers to the animals. And also, after all those years and all those thousands of shows, he was, you know, getting a little weary and wanted to just enjoy his life. So I think what really happened that night, to an extent, was that, you know, he had not been in personal contact with, you know, the tiger that was in use that evening, as much as he had once been. And so I think that he just didn't read the tiger right that night, and the tiger didn't read him right that night. And I think that's what ultimately happened. Was it a mistake or an error? No, I think it was just, you know, one of those things that I think Roy was very tired that night. He had his birthday party the night before and been drinking pretty heavy. And I'm sure he went on stage a lot of times, you know, after big parties, because it's Vegas. And,
yeah,
you know, and so I'm sure that was not unusual. They try to sort of allude to that being part of the issue, but I'm sure it wasn't really. But I do think that it was just that he didn't have as much personal contact with the animals. So when something unusual happened, you know, it was just an incident. But you think about the thousands of shows they did, and the hundreds of animals that are in the shows, and the perfection of all that. You know, it's amazing that it didn't happen many, many years before that. That's just a testament to how incredible he was as a trainer and how much the animals loved him.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, and this is definitely a credit to his character, is that after the incident, which hurt him severely, he was very concerned about the welfare of the cat. Am I correct in saying that? He wanted,
Right.
he wanted them to make sure no harm came to the cat as he was being taken to the hospital, and so he was more concerned, it seemed, about the animal than what was going on with himself. Am I correct in saying that, if I remember right?
Yes, Monocore. He did not blame Monocore at all, which is the name of the tiger, the white tiger, and neither did Siegfried, because they knew that in fact, he wholeheartedly felt, even though some of these other people that were around them at the time try to claim that what they were saying is not true, but I believe this. I think Roy slipped, maybe had a stroke, who knows, and that Monocore was just simply trying to pick him up by his neck and take him to safety. And that's what they claimed. They believed that wholeheartedly. Roy believed it till the day he died, and I believe it as well. And so, no, they would not allow anyone to hurt Monocore. Initially, they wanted to, put him to sleep. No, they wouldn't allow it. And Monocore lived out his life at the Secret Garden, at the Mirage Hotel. And so, yeah, that's what happened there. And that's a big thing when you consider that within seconds, being a superstar on stage, flying on ropes, the next second you're going to be in a wheelchair pretty much more or less for the rest of your life. And that tiger could have been considered the cause of it. That showed his dedication to those animals and his love for those animals, that he didn't want anything to happen to Monocore.
Yeah, absolutely. Just reading a little bit about that, and if you know how, tigers, the cat species, how they carry, their injured or their loved ones is by the neck.
Right.
They'll grab them by the neck and they'll drag them to where they think, there's going to be safety. So that definitely makes, sense that tiger would look at him as, a friend, and that's how he would be thinking. Okay, I'm going to grab him by the neck, how I would, if it was my small, little kitten or whatever, and that's how he would drag it. So I could definitely, see that happening, and that being the case in it.
Oh yeah, and when you consider how, that part of the show was really one of the least intensive parts. He had to work with Monocore or the animals, because other times, I'll say it this way, not to give away any secrets, but if you had to have let's say you had a four-door sedan, and you have a trunk, and you had to take a 650-pound tiger and put him in that trunk, then you squeezed in behind him, spooning this tiger in that trunk, and closed the lid behind you, right on top of your face and their face, and be in there for an amount of time. Then all of a sudden, you had to be instantly open the trunk, get on top of the trunk, and appear there. That's intense.
Oh yeah.
That's intense. Now, that's not giving away any secrets, but it's giving you a concept, because you're squished in this trunk with a 650-pound wild tiger, essentially, and you're in total tune with each other to be able to do that, and then to be able to get out and do it on command. You know how cats are. They don't want to do anything you want them to do.
Right.
A regular house cat. So think about this 650-pound white tiger, or other animals, cheetahs and lepjags and all the things they worked with, and to be able to do that, that's amazing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, Chuck, I'm sure you followed Siegfried and Roy and different magicians. What take on the that whole incident, on how it went down? Do you have any any different information, or you kind of agree upon the main story with it?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with it. You know what, just like Michael said, they were very dedicated to the animals, and I don't really know the full story, but I mean, it's a shame that happened. I mean, they were fantastic magicians, like I said, and I saw them a couple times. I was fortunate enough to see their show, and man, it was just unbelievable. Just like Michael said, I don't think anybody could duplicate that, and then a few times that they did appear on TV, I mean, there was no camera tricks or anything. I mean, there are, the sad fact is that, quite a few of the top guys around, they do use a lot of editing, a lot of camera tricks and so forth, but their shows were the real fantastic. I think that Siegfried just passed away, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, within the last year or so.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And did he have pancreatic cancer?
That's correct?
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me, because I'm sure this will not surprise anyone that's not familiar with them. They were lovers at one time. They eventually became more than lovers, because they were deeper than brothers, deeper than they had survived, both their fathers, the way it was with their life upbringing. They had survived it together. So they were far more than just gay lovers or brothers. They were far deeper than most people will ever achieve in a relationship. And so it doesn't surprise me that if Siegfried had that weakness, that after Roy passed away, it wouldn't be long till Siegfried was gone.
Michael, that was something I was actually going to bring up, because they passed away so close, to each other. And you always hear, stories. I can't remember what they exactly call it, like, died of a broken heart almost. Right. And that's kind of seems like what happened to them, because it was less than a year apart. I believe it was maybe 9-10 months, something like that. They passed, so that's definitely, you could see that. I mean, you're with somebody that long, and, you're that close to them, and you make that type of a connection that, that could have definitely, been the case, even though there's some other underlying, conditions. You hear people, especially, pancreatic cancer or whatnot, fighting it off for years, but it kind of seems like, hey, he was like, I got to be with, my partner again.
And
it's a little too long.
And I think what's kind of sad about it too is there's a biography film in the works about their lives, and I wish it had come to pass a little sooner. Siegfried was pretty excited about it, and last time I talked with him. And if it had, I think it would have maybe pulled him along a little bit longer, because he would have had that to be, part of and looking forward to. And, unfortunately, people have little respect for people in this world. And I was thinking about, Chuck, you probably know this movie. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's the comedy movie where they start out like Siegfried and Roy with Steve Buscemi, and I can't remember. And
I know what you mean. I can't think of the name, but I know what you're talking about.
But they sort of made fun of Siegfried and Roy in a roundabout way in that movie. David Copperfield was actually in the film. Right. And then in the end, they become more like David Copperfield. And they had a character that was like Chris Angel in it too, as well, played by, what's his name from The Mask and all those movies. But anyway, so they never, at the end, people were not respecting what they had achieved. You have to understand, they were the biggest thing ever in the history of Vegas at that time. I mean, they outdrew standing room only audiences for decades.
Oh, they did.
They set records that nobody had ever set in Vegas. And, now, of course, people like Penn and Teller and stuff claim, we're the duo act that did more show, did this and that. It's like, no, boys, your audience is about 1/5 of what Siegfried and Roy's were every night.
Yeah. I think they started playing Vegas, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, Siegfried and Roy, like 1977, 78, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. They started the Tropicana, and then they left Vegas because, when they went to Vegas, the producers or the owner of the casino or the producer said, you're not going to last long here because magic, it fails in Vegas. It's no good. And so, because that time, believe it or not, magicians were like the scum of Vegas. They were like considered,
right. Really,
you're exactly right.
Wow.
Yep.
Kind of like when I think of Vegas now, like more than, people think of Vegas and the gambling and the drinking, the partying, but usually when I think of Vegas, first thing that pops in my mind is magic shows.
Magic, yeah.
Which is funny because that's all because of Siegfried and Roy. Because prior to that, they were just a small little act that were considered, the low rung. And so this guy told me that you're never going to make it. You might as well you're going to be here a week or so. So then eventually they did leave. They did come back. They went to Puerto Rico. They came back. Then they opened at the MGM, and bam, they had their 12 minutes there. They just were unbelievable. That 12-minute act was unbelievable. And then they went from there to the Stardust when they have their 20-minute spot, which blew them up further. Then they went to the Frontier for their full evening show. And then finally the big one at the Mirage, which broke all kinds of attendance records. And the technology in that show had never been seen before. Even Michael Jackson sang a song for their show that was in the show.
Now, let me ask you guys this question. And Eddie, I'm sure you would probably know this too. Why was magic so shunned at that time?
Actually, you know what? I was going to ask a similar question because I thought David Copperfield started in Vegas, and
no, he didn't.
He didn't. Okay.
No, David Copperfield started in Chicago in a musical, and then he worked his way around, and finally he got his TV specials, and then ultimately he ended up going around the world. He toured so much that he decided to live in Vegas and have shows there. He would visit there occasionally, but no, he did not start in Vegas. He started in Chicago in a musical called The Magic Man, actually.
So what's the reason that they were that magic was so shunned in Vegas at that time? Because I mean, it's been around for forever. So why?
When you say time, though, what year? Early 70s?
60s to early 70s. Yeah, even the 50s. Some acts did play there periodically, but magic was considered something that was more like for kids. It wasn't really considered for the casinos with topless shows, things like that. That was mature for adult entertainment. There were a few people that broke that mold that did play there on occasion. Marvin Roy, who was Mr. Electric. Right. I think Channing Pollock might have played there on occasion, but very rarely did magicians get into that review show with the topless dancers that were considered adult entertainment. Right. And so, because magic was sort of dying at one point, and then it started to resurge with Doug Henning and Siegfried and Roy and all of that era. And then Siegfried and Roy were the ones that made Vegas into what they made it into. And they did attendance records that beat out everybody, including Elvis, everybody. Their attendance records were unmatched during their run.
Oh, yeah. And that was for over, 25 years? It was decades. It was amazing.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
So would it be safe to say that they pretty much brought magic to Vegas and made it what it is then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not only just the magic, but Vegas as a whole. I mean, they were the change. What happened was they were the game changer from the Sinatras, the Elvises, and all that into a production show being the big thing in Vegas, and what was the bridge to what is now Cirque du Soleil and that type of thing.
Yeah. What about Doug Henning? Wasn't he in New York all the time, though?
You can speak on that in a minute, Chuck. I don't want to do all the talking.
No,
I'm saying it's Eddie. I'm saying, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I was saying, what exactly happened with Doug Henning? Because I remember Doug Henning's in the magic show in New York for years, since I was a very young kid.
Yeah, he was on Broadway, right, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. So he was never on Vegas, was he?
He did visit Vegas eventually, but that was after he made his fame doing TV specials. He went from the magic show to doing the TV specials on NBC. I was lucky enough to go to the filming of 3 of those. And my brother at the time had a series on NBC, so he got me into the filming of Doug Henning specials. And those were shot, as Chuck would acknowledge, they were all live on tape.
That's right.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Chuck, in case you didn't know this, they actually shot the rehearsal as well. So if something happened during the live, they ran it simultaneous, so they could switch it over instantly and then switch back.
Yeah.
But Doug revolutionized magic both in dress, style, and everything.
The thing that was cool about Doug Henning, Michael, was he made magic cool. I mean, he had a style. He had a wonderment style about him. It was like, wow. I mean,
yes.
You know what? He didn't like, how should I say? He didn't talk condescending. He was almost like a child. He had a wonderment about him, and he was really cool. I mean, I really respected him a lot. And then like you said, magic goes into a lull. I mean, it's popular for a few years, then it dies out, then it comes back. It seems like world's greatest magic for the regular lay audiences back about 15 years ago or so. That really made it popular again.
Yes.
And it's like weird. I mean, it'll get real popular. It'll go into a lull, like maybe a TV show. You know what? Strangely enough, even The Masked Magician kind of made it popular again for the wrong reasons, but he did make it popular again. For a while.
And the thing about it, Chuck, is that what's interesting about magic compared to a variety of singers, other acts, bands, there can only be one magician that's famous in a decade. That's truly famous.
You're right, one at a time. I'm going to bring up a name to you, Michael, which I know you heard of, but the regular people out in society really haven't heard of him. But us as performing magicians, we held him as a god, and he really, really was one of the best around. Del Rey.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I was actually friends with him, and
wow.
And he's actually, from Pittsburgh. He was literally about 15 minutes from my house. In 1987 or so, I actually performed on the same show as him.
Wow.
He had the same billing, and that's how I seen him perform, and that's what got me into the electronic magic. But he was way ahead of his time with micro technology. As far as the electronics, and he was equally as devastating with his sleight of hand. You know what? If there's anybody out, somebody who was unbelievable Go on YouTube and search Magician Del Rey. There are videos of him, and he was just a down to earth, a very nice man. And you know what? He didn't look the part. You know what? He looked like almost like a mobster type of a look, and his voice, and his voice was pure gravel. Right, the way he talked, it was it was pure gravel. But he was unbelievable. He's probably the best magician all around that that I've ever known. But what's weird, the general public does not know about him. Am I correct?
No, and you know what? That's true, Chuck, with a lot of good magicians. I've never tailored my career to be popular with magicians. In fact, I just wrote a little thing, a post about that, because people always say, oh, I don't play to magicians. Magicians don't pay my income.
Right,
I play to the public.
Exactly.
And so I'm not well known at the Magic Castle. I'm a member. I performed there on decades ago, but I'm not well known amongst the magic circles because I don't perform for magicians. I perform for the public.
Right.
And that's really how you make a living in magic, is by performing for the public, not magicians. And so there are a lot of magicians like Del Rey that are not known by the public as much as magicians, because they're revered because they're doing things that magicians know are pretty much impossible or extremely difficult.
Absolutely. I tell you, when I saw him do his act, I could not believe what I was seeing, Michael. I mean, it was just, it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
I got a question for you now, for all three of you guys, because you guys are all been involved in magic in some form or another, and have dealt with or known, various magicians of various degrees. Is there a lot of gatekeeping in the magic community?
Specify what you mean.
What do you mean?
Not wanting to share information or share tricks or work together or anything like that, or someone kind of just, keeps stuff to themselves and doesn't really form like a community.
Well, but I think it could be true to a point, but what I always recommend, to somebody who is getting into magic, or even if you are into it, join your local IBMs, SAMs, join your local rings, talk to the older people, especially. Like I said, I was friends with Del Rey out here in Pittsburgh. Tony Polito just passed away. He was a good friend of mine. Harry Allbacker, he did a lot of the carnivals. He traveled like Michael does. He did a lot of the the big carnivals all across the United States. So get involved, talk to people. But yeah, I think they are a little bit reluctant. I think there's a little bit of an attitude once in a while. It's not good to be like that, but I think there is a little bit.
But Chuck, you got to have some type of quietness, because in order for a magician to go out there, like say, for example, Michael Mezmer, and do his thing, he can't really, be out in the public or telling other magicians because they won't stand out. But one thing that it's kind of, when you said about magicians being where magicians are not well known, about 2 weeks ago, we had on our show, we had the NBA Mason Plumlee, and we had from the New Jersey Devils, we had Mac Underwood, correct? Blackwood. I'm sorry, Mac Mackenzie Blackwood.
Right.
And one of the things is that Mason mentioned a magician friend of his that, does some shows in New York and places, and goes by the name of Footy. Foddy, I think it is, Footy. And when I looked him up and stuff, I saw he had appeared in the Tonight Show, in a couple of shows on TV, and he was really good. Of course, he did mentalism at the time, but I think he does. But the point is, there's a lot of great magicians out there that a lot of people don't even know about.
Absolutely.
That are super famous.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of good working performers in general, whether it's magicians, musicians, whatever, that have made a great living, been able to have 2 cars in the driveway and a house and pay their taxes, doing just their entertainment. But you've never heard their names, and you probably never will.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, why do you think that is, that some of these big magicians, that they just don't, they're not well known as some? Is it because they, don't perform in Vegas or on some bigger venues, or the way that, the business is?
Well, today especially, we have the show America's Got Talent. America's Got Talent, people see people on there, but, the thing about a show like that is, to get that exposure, you have to be doing something in 90 seconds, and it's under really strict, rules. And for me, principally, people always say, "Are you going to go on AGT?" And I bet you do great, because we love your show. But I won't, because I can't do something and set it up properly and perform it properly in 90 seconds. And the people that do that, remember their premise used to be that if you won it, you'd be a Vegas headliner with your own show.
Right.
Well, Terry Fader, the ventriloquist, did very well with that because he had been working fairs with me for years. And so he had perfected his craft and he was ready. But most of those acts you see on there, they can do a fantastic, I mean, like they have those singing groups, for instance, with choirs. That's great. Are you going to pay $250 a ticket to see them sing for 2 hours? I don't think so. Yeah. So the problem is that you don't have the Johnny Carson that we used to have, where you could go on and do an act and the world would be introduced to you. You have this 90-second thing, or, Jimmy Fallon, what that's about is getting people on there that are buying ads for the program. And so they get to do a spot, but discovering new talent being discovered is on AGT. And that's really not even new talent because people that design things just for that show. So there's very few venues where you can grab that attention nationally, and beyond that, get your act popular and like that.
Michael, what do you have to say about a magician that Mason mentioned, or I think it was Mackenzie? Do you guys remember that we said that I think he's Chinese? Chuck, you know what I'm talking about? That he was on that television, he was phenomenal.
Oh, you mean Shin Lim?
Yeah, Shin Lim. What do you think of him, Michael?
I think he's fabulous. On the other hand, I don't care for. I can't watch another card trick in my life. So I just can't stand card magic. I think it's the most boring thing on every corner of the street. He, however, took it to a new level and really made it fabulous. Yes, but again, you're talking about a guy that, can I sit and watch him for an hour and a half doing these things? Personally, no. I know people have seen the show and they're just thrilled with it. So everybody has their own taste. For me, it's just not my thing. My thing is like David Blaine. I love David Blaine, who is he does amazing physical challenges. And he's the closest thing we have to Houdini today is David Blaine. And I really, really get intrigued. And I'm really blown away by what he does.
Speaking of that, and the physical challenges, it's really amazing. And years ago, I looked into a little bit on how he, prepares for, his tricks and everything. And it is, and when I was in the military, they always said, however far you think that you could push your body, you're only at about 20-25%. There's so much potential that we have. And then you look at someone like David Blaine and what he does to prepare for a trick. And it just goes to show you that we can push our bodies and our minds farther than we could ever imagine. Oh, and it's sad that a lot of people out there, majority of people, don't realize this and don't do that. But there are people out there that are pushing themselves and they see that limit and they look at that limit and they say, you know what, I'm still only 20% of what I could do. And they just push it farther and farther. And people like me, look at that and go, my God, this guy's like, he's crazy. How could he do that? This must be magic, but it's actually our potential. It's what we can do.
Well, and what was Eddie was talking about giving out secrets. Well, there is no secret to David Blaine. It's what it is. Hard work. It's hard work. Yes, he does some card demonstrations, street stuff, but really what he's famous for is the physical demonstrations. And it's just hard work. It's what it is. Like you watch him train, you see how he's preparing for it. In my case, in my show, because I break an arrow with my neck and I put my hand in a wolf trap and I do a bullet catch, I use self-hypnosis so I don't feel the impact when these things happen. So that's the fascinating part of magic that I like now. Now, Chuck, I will tell you, I'm a Chavez graduate. So I literally toured the world doing sleight of hand and 25 countries touring in the 80s and 90s. But I've kind of moved on into the David Blaine zone now and do this stuff because I find it much more challenging and fascinating to me. But there's no secret to it. It's mind over matter is the secret.
Right. Hey, Michael, there's a friend of mine. He took the Mike Dayton course of Chi. And that had to be about 30 years ago. Mike Dayton was very famous for mind over matter. Yes. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge at one time, didn't get hurt and everything. And so this guy, he had his whole course. This is years ago, and he studied it. Yeah, and you know what? He did he accomplished some amazing things. We were, me and this guy, we were very much into martial arts. I took Chinese.
Me
Kempo.
Too.
Yeah, I took Chinese Kempo when I was about 15 through 18. I was up to a brown belt. I was almost a black belt, but then I ended up getting out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what? I've always been fascinated, and I'd like to get back into martial arts someday. That was really great. I enjoyed it a lot. I really did.
Well, the aero break that I do, Chuck, comes from demonstrations of martial arts. And in fact, I did a movie with Chuck Norris called The Octagon because I was in the martial arts.
I love that movie.
That was a cool movie.
I was a ninja in that movie, and Chuck's brother Aaron taught us weaponry and stuff for the film. But I love martial arts, Chuck. That's interesting that you and I have that kind of similar background.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was always enamored by Bruce Lee. Man, he died.
Oh, yeah.
He died way too young. Oh my goodness, that guy was unbelievable. He studied. He came up with his own method. Jeet Kune Do, and he just combined everything with it. I mean, like no one even seen his style. It was a combination. Yeah. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. I think
his style was a style without style. It was whatever worked for that situation. Exactly. He would pull from other styles.
Oh man, he was something else, and he was in his early 30s, I think, when he died.
Yeah,
he's another one. He's another one that he pushed his mind and his body to the limits, and then kept on going.
You're not kidding.
Amazing.
You're not kidding. But he was.
They were saying that when he did Enter the Dragon, he really pushed it to the limit there, and that could have been also part of his reason for dying so young. But
there's actually an autopsy last hours of Bruce Lee. If you ever watch Reel's channel, it will give you a lot of insight into what happened.
I like to check it. Hey, how about his 1-inch punch, Michael? Wasn't that unbelievable?
Oh my gosh,
that was unbelievable.
Yes, unbelievable. The force he could get within 1-inch space to knock someone to the other side of the room. Yeah. Incredible.
It was unreal.
Michael, I have a quick question now. Also, when we've been talking about all this. Penn and Teller now, they started a show, of course, which is called Can You Fake Penn and Teller? Is that the name of the show? Or
no, Fool Us.
Fool Us. What do you think that they started that? Do you think that's because they're kind of like at the end of the rope in their career, maybe, and they're just trying to get popular again?
No. I think that they're very popular with TV audiences. And I got to add, I'm so pleased they did start that because I think we're speaking about showcasing, although you don't get it's not like being on Johnny Carson in the 70s, but they give time for magicians to actually present what they do, and they have a respect for it. And I was not Penn and Teller fans early on, but I've become more of a fan of theirs because how kind they are to all the magicians they brought on that program. So I have to give them a thumbs up and a thank you from the magic community for them to showcase so many magicians in such a positive light on that program.
One thing I could say about the program that I find amazing is with Penn and Teller, like I think that's Teller's the younger guy. I mean, the smaller guy that always doesn't talk.
Yes,
and he's actually the real magician of the team.
Yeah,
Penn was originally a juggler, and he's a comedian. So Penn's really the intensive magic part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so funny though? He's such a great in what he does because even in acting, without talking, he can portray all his.
Yes,
it's amazing. He's like he reminds me of the world famous actor Charles Chaplin.
Yeah,
yes.
To on silent film.
Yeah, I always like people that could convey something without having to say words, and that's why I'm always a huge fan of silent films. Is that you have all these characters without saying a word, and what they're feeling, what they're saying, and it's just amazing that they could convey those emotions just by using their body. And I always, looking at comic books, there was a real famous G.I. Joe comic in the 80s. It was, I believe, issue number 21. It was called The Silent Issue, and they did the whole comic book without any words. It was just photo, just the artwork. And it was amazing at the emotions that they could convey to the reader without saying a word, just through the artwork. So when someone could do that, I always think that's amazing.
Joe, when I was listening, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think in my opinion, the best person that ever did that was Sergio Aragones from Mad Magazine, where he did Gru and all that, and he would always have. Anytime you open a Mad Magazine, inside the ones that had no wording, is usually Sergio Aragones. Mm-hmm. Fabulous artist, fabulous.
Absolutely.
And, Joe, I was going to say to you, based on the talk you were talking about your movie for the week and how they rediscovered it. I'm praying someday somewhere they find London After Midnight.
Oh, I know I think that's on everybody's top list of lost movies to find.
I was thinking of that when you said that earlier.
Yeah, even though you read a lot of maybe like old articles about it or old reviews, and it doesn't get much praise. A lot of people say it's a bad movie, but it's still one of those movies that us horror fans, and I think even just movie fans in general, just want to see this movie. And I am very, very 100% convinced that somewhere out there, there's some little old lady in her house, and in her attic, she is sitting on a box with this film in it. I am fully convinced of it.
And Lon Chaney go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say, Mike, a lot of people don't realize that when you said that they say it's a bad film, that's because they did a film of it using still photos.
Right.
So there's really no actual film of it.
That's right.
So because of that, a lot of people look at it and go, oh, that's a horrible film. But the actual film has been lost since who knows when.
Yeah, but a lot of the reviews that came in when it was, it was actually out in theaters and all that as a silent film, they weren't good. I don't think there's really too many that give it, a positive review. Am I right in saying that?
Even Forrest Ackerman, who was a big fan of Lon Chaney Sr., he was talking about how it was kind of strange how Lon would walk, and it's sort of like a Groucho kind of, cadence with his walking and bending over. And it was just kind of odd. But the thing is, Lon Chaney, in my opinion, was probably the greatest film actor of all time.
Absolutely.
And I mean, he could make you feel. I mean, I love West of Zanzibar. Have you ever seen that, Chuck?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
About the magician and about his daughter and how horrific it is.
Don't give me too many spoilers, because I just bought the video a couple of weeks ago. I found it on DVD and I haven't watched it yet. So it came in a Lon Chaney collection with like 7 movies, and that's one of them that I
love that film. In fact,
it's on my list to watch.
In my Scary Monsters article that I did recently, a couple of issues ago, when I was doing of Monsters and Magic, in the first part, I was analyze that whole film from a magician standpoint. So, but he is just phenomenal in that film, just phenomenal.
Yes, he is.
And that's a bit of acting that it's unmatched. So when we talk about pantomime, Lon Chaney, I mean, it's amazing what he could do without speaking one word in a whole film.
It really is. Hey, I took Eddie's advice. Eddie, I watched that movie you talked about in the last podcast, or maybe the one before, The Old Dark House. That was cool, man.
Oh, that's a good one.
Did you like that, Chuck? That's a great movie, isn't it?
Yeah. In the beginning, that car in a big mudslide, and it just missed it. I mean, that was unbelievable. And the house and everything. It was, that movie had a certain charm about it. It was neat. I like.
Oh, that I tell you, that is I'll say it over and over again. That is the perfect movie to watch at night.
Yeah. When
it is raining outside, and turn off all the lights and watch that movie, because it just adds to it. And I know we talked about it before, and that guy knew the girl for one night, and then asked her to marry him, and they were. Right.
Yeah, that was something, man. That was pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah, that is a fantastic movie, and that was recently found as well too. But I tell you what, anything with Boris Karloff is great, and the movie The Ghoul is a. I always like the old black and white movies that have like the Egyptian theme to it. So, this one is definitely falls in that line. But hey, we're down to about 2 minutes here, so we're gonna start wrapping things up, and just want to give a quick thank you to all of our listeners out there. We're every week we're at about 6,000 listeners plus a week now, and we're continuing to grow. And I just want to thank everyone out there that's listening, that's subscribed to us, that's supporting us. A huge thank you from all of us, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this, and we would just be on here talking without anybody listening. So
yeah, really,
definitely thank you to everyone out there, and a huge thank you to Michael and Chuck for coming on and giving us some great input and insight to the world of magic and Siegfried and Roy, and definitely some awesome information there. So thank you guys for joining us tonight.
No problem.
And guys, one thing I want to say real quick: don't forget to watch the Buster Keaton, which is another great, The Haunted House.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And also one last note, everybody out there, when you get a chance, and I know everybody's busy and all that, but you get a little chance, head over to houseoftheunusual.com. Join our free forum. We have a lot of good stuff going on there. People are showcasing their collections, talking about movies, talking about magic, talking about mail order novelties. So it's just a great time. And if you're looking to be a guest on the show, you don't have to be an expert in anything, but you just, if you enjoy talking about the stuff that we talk about, drop us a line on there and we'll get you on the show, and, we'll have some great conversations. So for all of us here at House of the Unusual, thank you guys for joining us, and good night, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Good
Good night,
talking to you.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.